So I wanted to give some insight into how I actually made the decision to quit. I've had a few messages from people saying that they wish they had quit or they want to quit, but they're just not ready. And that's something that I've dealt with quite a lot in my life. And there's been a lot of things that I've avoided doing, even though I know that it probably would have been better for me. That, in fact, a good example of this, when I was at university in my second year, I think it was, I really wanted to build basically a food box, cardboard box, and there'd be a load of fruit and vegetables and essentially a meal plan inside of that. And this was like 2014, 13, something like that, before like food boxes were really a thing. And I thought it worked really well. I went through the branding. It was going to be called Eat Fresher, and it was going to be focused on students. And I got to the point where I knew that I needed to do it now. I needed to start. And I decided I wouldn't. Instead, I'd focus on engineering because that's the normal way of completing your degree. And I really wish I had. Now, the food boxes are huge. They're really common. And like Gusto and Oddbox, they like serve thousands of people and bring like real delight to cooking again. And I missed the ball. It was the idea that I had that I didn't act on when I should have. This inaction is a choice. You're ultimately deciding that you aren't ready for this. And the essay by Paul Graham actually gave me the confidence that I am ready. And I wanted to point to some of the things that he does to kind of give you guys an understanding of why I've quit. The first, I think, is always about being too young. I've kind of always felt this pressure. I've always felt like, oh, I'm too young to do that. I can't just jump out. I have no provenance, that no one will believe I can do these things. And he kind of twists it the other way. Paul focuses on how when you're young, you have a lot more time to be able to do stuff. You're much better at learning things. You're much more connected, especially if you're in a university, to connect to multiple people very, very quickly. And all of those things gives you a huge advantage if you're trying to get traction with a load of people. And that's why a lot of innovation starts in universities, because it's the biggest mixer that we have. I would then also say, well, okay, well, if I'm not young, I'm not experienced. I don't know how to build X, Y, or Z. And yeah, that's fair enough. Maybe you don't. But I would bet you probably can learn. I think all of us, like the key skill that we all have is the ability to learn. And yeah, I could have learned, and I believe everyone can learn how to be inexperienced. And then he points to, if you want to be more experienced, going to a corporate type job will not give you that experience. The only way to dramatically gain the experience on the problem area that you're interested in is to start the startup. There's no better way to learn. Which I took that really to heart, especially with Every Hour. To learn so much about kind of productivity, I need to focus on it. So the inexperienced thing is just an excuse, not necessarily a real reason not to. The next is about whether you have the commitment. So this is something I didn't have for Eat Fresher, the food box. I didn't have the commitment that I wanted to spend the next 2 years of my life on the thing. And that's fair enough. But I would wager a bet that if you were going to get a new job tomorrow, you would expect to stay there for 2 years. And maybe the 2 years would be enough for you to understand whether you still wanted to be in your startup. So what would you lose? The next thing is around knowing nothing about business, which I still don't. I don't take business classes. I know nothing about how to register a business. And I think that is just the same anywhere. If you do know about that, you know that there's not much benefit in knowing exactly how to register a business. You can learn those things and Google all those things, but the important thing in a business is it being valuable. And if you can build something valuable, then you are already building a business. He also talks about like family. There's a lot of pressure sometimes of not disappointing family. I'm really lucky. I don't have that kind of pressure from my family, really. But I did feel there would be a pressure if I quit my kind of business job to start doing something with no salary, that looks like a fall from grace. And the way to get around that is basically to explain logically why you're doing it. You believe that there's a better chance for you to be happy. There's a high chance that you can do something well, and that after the case you would be either more employable or better suited to your next role and earning a wage again. And that worked for me, and I'd recommend doing the same. Your family are naturally risk averse. They don't want you to be risky because they care for you. But that does then limit your opportunities. And if you are confident you can do it, I would take that opportunity. Your confidence is the important thing here. You are the most knowledgeable about your situation. Part of that as well that comes out of it is like what is the worst that will happen, and the worst that has happened, well, my idea would fail, my company would fail, the efforts that I've spent will be for nothing. But I don't think that's true. If I was to stay in my current role for another 6 months, that's fine. It wouldn't add a dramatic amount to the CV. I could talk about the new projects that I did, but it wouldn't be a dramatic change. Whereas if I'm thinking again about my CV, if I've focused on my startup for 6 months, I will have many more skills because of the rapid rate of learning that I wouldn't have had before. And that would make me more employable in the future as well. So I don't see it being something that would be detrimental to my career. If anything, I believe it would be beneficial to my career. And those, I think, are the key points that really stick with me from the essay. I'll post a link to the essay and what I think about it. But there was one more final thing, and that was about being supportive of myself. Can I actually sustain the lifestyle that I want to live? Paying rent, for example. That is something that I calculated for myself, and I have been saving for. I know now that my savings pot means that I have at least 6 months worth of non-salaried living if my living expenses stay exactly the same. And for me, that was the final step. In all of the other points, it's been about, is it possible that I could do this? And I believe yes. Then the final one, is it financially secure to be able to do this? And because of that runway, I know I am for at least 6 months, if not more. And that's how I made the decision. You can keep on saying that you're not ready, but believe that you are.